So as the G1 Climax is now wrapped up, I think we can now say that we all heard that collective sigh of relief from the wrestling community as the 1, 2, 3 happened. My God, we were worried there for a second. Hello and welcome to FTTR, I am Hugh McQuaid, and today we are talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling. In particular, we are talking about the G1 Climax final. That's right, the final of the biggest tournament of pro wrestling in the world has finally concluded, and I have some thoughts on it overall. But before we dive into that, please subscribe, please like this video, please comment your thoughts down below and I'll try to apply to every single one of them as we dive into this. Starting with my relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling, I am going to say that I am a filthy casual of New Japan Pro Wrestling. I keep up with some of the big events, some of the big matches, but I don't watch it religiously because it is a very, very time consuming sort of wrestling product. The shows are very long, the matches are very long, and as much as I love it, it is sort of, my interest in it has decreased sort of over the last few years, but I do check out the big shows like your Dominions and like your G1 Climaxes. I haven't watched the entire G1 Climax though, because props to anyone who works a full-time job and watches all the G1 Climax, because it is an investment to keep up with that stuff, so I respect you fully. So for any sort of New Japan stuff, I'd recommend checking out some other channels we talk about, just New Japan Pro Wrestling and that good stuff. Sono's Life, that's a really good channel over there, and they do really cool stuff talking about New Japan. But with all that out of the way, I sat down today, my weekend off, and watched the G1 Climax semi-finals and the finals. The semi-finals being Zack Sabre Jr., the IWGP champion, taking on Konosuke Takeshita, and Yota Tsuji taking on Evil. That was the semi-finals. That show, I thought was pretty good. I thought it was good, I thought it was fine. There's just a big cloud hanging over New Japan Pro Wrestling at the moment, and that is the cloud of House of Torture. Because particularly on the semi-final day, the amount of interference, the amount of shenanigans that went on in some of those matches, it is hard to watch at times because it is just this, it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere, and that led to Evil picking up the win in the semi-finals and advancing to the finals. Evil, a wrestler who I don't necessarily get on board with. I think he's fine. He's cool, I guess. He's got a good look, but in ring, you know, he doesn't light the world on fire for me, particularly when he's up against people like Yota Tsuji, who I think are really good and really underrated. The other match, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Konosuke Takeshita, I thought again was really damn good. I think they've got really good chemistry, but again, it's not really to the standard of New Japan Pro Wrestling that I'm accustomed to, particularly when you just tune in for the big shows. Zack Sabre Jr. I love. I think he's incredible. I think he's a great champion. He's had one of my favourite matches of the year against Hiroki Goto for the IWGP Championship. That was one of my favourite matches. And I thought the match with Takeshita was good. It had a really good ending. The top rope Raging Fire was insane. And that led to Konosuke Takeshita picking up the win. And we are here with a final of Konosuke Takeshita versus Evil. The match itself for the finals was a mixed bag. I'm going to say it's a mixed bag because the opening half of this match I thought was just straight up bad. I thought it was straight up boring. You had Ren Narita and all of House of Torture getting involved. That was just unbearable. It's unbearable levels of interference. Like, I get we've had these big stories of pro wrestling like the Death Riders, like the Bloodline, where people get involved, and we were getting sick of that. You know, people in hoodies pulling people out and getting sick of, you know, the Death Riders running in, Wheeler Yuta hitting a flying knee. We were getting tired of that, but the House of Torture interference is just so overwhelming because it just it's the entire match. It's ridiculous. And cutting back very briefly to the semi-finals, the ending of the semi-finals match between Evil and Yota Tsuji was really bad, with Don Fail hitting the, you know, crucifix bomb, and then just the sharpshooter from Evil for the win. I hope Yota Tsuji isn't. He was wrestling on this show, so I'm not sure if he was injured, but people were saying he might have got a concussion from it. I think he's okay. If so, it was a bad finish. And yeah, back to the finals. The finals had all that interference, had all that nonsense, and it had Takeshita sort of being built up as the underdog. But for me, this match just it didn't click because you had two bad guys, essentially. And even the way commentary put Takeshita over was as a bad guy. They called him selfish. They called him someone who was, an outsider. He doesn't necessarily have that fighting spirit, homegrown New Japan babyface that we're looking for to go up against Evil, who is a big bad. He is a massive, his name is Evil. He is the biggest of the bad guys, and no one wanted him to win this. So but he's going up in with a tweener. So the dynamic kind of fell off because some of the crowd were really into Evil as well. The dynamic was just a bit weird. And then when all that stuff's gone down, you've had Takeshita take out all of House of Torture. You've had low blows from Evil. You've had weapon shots from Ren Narita. It was a bit of a mess at the beginning. But I will say this. I turned a corner on the match. I think it got really, really good towards the end. You got some really cool sequences. Evil showing that he is capable in the ring, particularly when he's not relying on people running in and running interference. I think you've got some really cool moments in there. But the title of this video, the winner of the G1 Climax, is none other than Konosuke Takeshita, beating Evil, and we all just breathed a little bit because we were like, it's not Evil. It's not Evil. And that leads into the question, I think, from this is Konosuke Takeshita the right winner? For me, I think it all depends on who he's facing at Wrestle Kingdom. Seemingly, if it is Zack Sabre Jr., I think they've got great chemistry. They had two matches in the G1 Climax, obviously the semi-finals and the block matches as well. So I don't think it's going to be Zack. For some reason, I don't think Zack is going to walk into Wrestle Kingdom as champion. I don't know who he's going to go up against. And I think that's an issue that maybe New Japan have at the moment. They don't have a lot of top guys, a lot of top stars. Tanahashi's retiring. Naito's gone. People like David Finlay aren't necessarily pushed to the top of the card. So he doesn't really have anyone who he could go up against to claim that title, unless he claims it early like Zack Sabre Jr. did and claims the title shot and he walks into Wrestle Kingdom as the IWGP champion. So yeah, in terms of Takeshita, AEW, DDT, New Japan contract, he's a triple contracted wrestler. I love Takeshita. He's over there. He's there. I love Takeshita so much. But for me, this match just didn't click the way I wanted it to. As much as we've dreamed, right, of Konosuke Takeshita in the G1 Climax final, this wasn't the match that I wanted from Takeshita. I think we've seen Takeshita be a beast against the likes of Ospreay, against Kenny Omega, and against Zack Sabre Jr. But him in there with Evil didn't light the world on fire for me. And I don't really know where the landscape is of New Japan right now. I don't really know who we're supposed to be excited to see, who's going to rise to the top. Is Goto going to come back? Are we going to get Takeshita versus Goto? I don't really know. And I think that's kind of the issue with New Japan at the moment, is it all feels it feels a bit like a clusterfuck at the moment, particularly with House of Torture. House of Torture had like 3 matches on the semi-finals show, and that's a bit overwhelming. I feel like it needs almost like a solid reset, and I thought that's what we were going to get when Tanahashi took over as president. But a lot of the stuff that he said, particularly the stuff about House of Torture, hasn't really come to fruition. So I don't know who or what's going to happen. There's a United Empire there as well, who could potentially vie for the IWGP Championship, maybe. But is anyone in that group ready? I love Callum Newman, but is he ready to be the headliner of Wrestle Kingdom? I don't know. I don't know where we go from here. Overall, if I had to say, I think Takeshita is a decent choice. He wouldn't have been my number 1 pick to win the G1 Climax, but I'm intrigued to see where they go from here, particularly with him working multiple different promotions. So yeah, let me know who you want to see face Takeshita at Wrestle Kingdom. Do you think he will cash it in early? Do you think he will beat Zack Sabre Jr.? Let me know down in the comments. I'll try to reply to every single one of them. Thank you all ever so much for your support, and have a nice day.